Welcome to Nasscom BCG India Means Innovation podcast. I'm excited today to have as my guest a multifaceted leader, a truly global citizen, Roman Lucen, who is the SVP, Chief Business Operations and Transformation Officer. Roman, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me, Snehil.
Look, we have a lot of things to get through, so if you don't mind, Roman, I'll jump straight into our questions. But let's begin with the bigger picture, right? The global development hinges today on energy and the advancements that we see around energy infrastructure. From your vantage point, how do you see the global landscape of energy infra evolving, especially as smart grids and automation and some of the other things align with that?
Yeah, thanks for the question and the introduction, Snehil. So talking about the general energy infrastructure, I think we are clearly in a moment of transformation of the general energy industry and the infrastructure in itself. And battery energy storage systems, from my point of view, they are at the heart of that transformation. Yeah. So it basically starts with the simple use cases where you basically see a general trend over the last years. Wind, solar, renewables had been growing a lot. And obviously the wind doesn't always blow, the sun doesn't always shine. And from that perspective, it is crucial that you have a battery system close to them so that you can enable basically the permanent production of solar and wind. But those use cases are actually evolving even further. And that's clearly something that we're seeing. The BESS systems, battery energy storage systems, are becoming an enabler for the overall grid. Yeah? So that's grid stabilization. You always need a certain speed at which the energy flows, so basically 50 or 60 hertz, depending on where you are in the world. So that's something that you can enable with a constant power supply enabled by the batteries. You basically have the energy arbitrage, meaning you have different prices of energy at certain times of the day. So it's crucial that you can enable that, and that you can basically sell the energy at a moment where you can realize higher prices, that you can actually charge the battery at a moment where the prices are a little lower, and then the customers, the utilities of the world, and basically earn more money by that. And obviously that is something that you can enable with artificial intelligence, with solutions that you bring in that help you selling and buying at the right moments in time. So this whole pattern is clearly something that is evolving, and overall the energy demand, the demand for capacity, is clearly something that is increasing tremendously, driven by different factors in the different parts of the world. But this is also something, bringing the energy capacity to the market is also something that is strongly enabled by batteries. And therefore I believe our business basically is at the heart of this, and we see that broad change and the transformation of the energy, enabling the capacity, really making it possible that we have the right energy supply.
Roman, I wonder how much of what you just said is here and now versus the future. Maybe perhaps, do you see the situation today in terms of where there's opportunity to accelerate a little different from where you see how the best will play out in the future in terms of either the smart pricing and or the challenges around that? Or are we at the point where all of this is already happening to the level and satisfaction that you and other players in the industry would like?
No, I think we are still at the early stage, basically, of that development of the BESS. And we're seeing it on different levels. The core use case, meaning the co-location with renewables, solar, wind, is something, I would say, in certain parts of the world is fully developed. And when I say certain parts of the world, for instance, California, Australia, these are markets where we are already very established, basically, for the overall industry and for Fluence Energy in particular. Yeah. But in other parts of the world, it is a change that is coming in there. Even in the US, when you look at the interconnection queue is basically, you see those energy projects that are being planned, that are currently in permitting. And if you look at the interconnection queue in the US, 50% of the energy projects today that are planned are actually BESS projects. So, and the other 50% is all of the rest.
Yeah.
So you're meaning solar, wind, gas, coal, nuclear, all of that together. So you see the growth momentum that is ahead of us, because here we're talking about permitting. Not all of these projects will get realized, but a big part is going to be realized. So that's one element where you see tremendous growth upcoming. The other element, and I talked about demand, for instance, data center is a business that is growing tremendously throughout the world, here in India and other parts of the world. So it is really something that is driving demand. And therefore it is crucial that we bring the energy supply behind it to support these big players in there. I give you one example, actually, one of our projects, the Ørsted project that we realized together with Ørsted in Arizona, actually in the US, is a project dimension-wise 300 megawatts 4-hour system. What does that mean? So if you take the average consumption of an Indian household, it would basically mean you can support almost 2 million Indian households for 4 hours with at an average energy consumption. And obviously, when I say average energy consumption, you do have that situation where we all come home at a certain moment, turn on the TV, have the high energy consumption. So energy consumption is not stable, because at night when all of us are sleeping, there's no energy consumption in the household. So these 4 hours actually go a long way. Yeah. So when you think about that figure, almost 2 million Indian households. Obviously, it's a little less American households because they tend to consume a little more energy. But nevertheless, that's a strong statement that we can make. So that project, a big project, was afterwards bought by Meta. Yeah, so you see that Meta, the data centers, they are very active in this market. They need the power supply. They are driving demand. So you see two changes in the pattern. The projects are becoming bigger, plus the data center players as one element are driving demand, and we have a strong growth behind that. So overall, great growth momentum in the industry, and a lot of other use cases that are going to come into
Wonderful.
play.
That's great to hear. Let's talk something that's on everyone's minds. It's often, in every conversation, it's like, how quickly can the word come into the conversation, which is AI, right? How do you see intelligent infra technologies, like you just mentioned, evolve to become more adaptive in an AI-driven environment around us, right? You mentioned a lot about software-centric elements, a lot of what can fuel growth in a new energy environment. What is Fluence's strategy in leveraging Gen AI, both internally and in your products? And how does that help you contribute to the outcomes that you want to drive from a product lens as well?
Right. I mean, obviously, it's a fascinating and fast-paced change that we're looking at. Starting with all of us on a personal level, I guess. I'm using ChatGPT basically every day regarding the simple questions of the everyday. And also at Fluence, we have, for instance, Copilot is available to all of our employees. Everybody can use it. It's in our day-to-day. So that's one element that we have in there. We have large language models, basically, that we run on our contract database, for instance, so that we have a good overview regarding these things. So that's basically the internal process. And obviously, it also helps in software development in itself. Yeah? The external piece, when we talk about that one, I talked about the importance to basically buy and sell energy in the right moments in time. And for that one, having the artificial intelligence behind it, we have a software that we call Mosaic. Okay. So the Fluence Mosaic is basically a software that does that with a strong algorithm behind it, can predict it actually 3 days in advance with very high 80% accuracy, basically, what the energy price is going to be. But even more important, can also react very fast. Because when you think about markets like Australia, for instance, you have fast-paced changes in the minutes, basically, where the price changes in a certain location in Australia. And obviously, if you think about a human having to operate and coordinate these fast-paced changes, it's almost impossible. But with the AI, you can actually do these fast changes, fast buying, selling behavior in there. So that's a very concrete example where we use AI.
Indeed, yeah, that's very useful. So if we talk about innovation in general, historically, innovation has followed very long cycle times, right? And with the advent and over many decades, that innovation cycle has shortened quite a bit, right? In today's digital-first world, especially, on the industrial side, we see things like digital twins and predictive analytics and intelligence, like you just mentioned, the pace has changed quite significantly. How do you, both at Fluence and in general in the industry, look at this compounded rate of innovation and basically work around that in terms of where you need to be from a market product perspective and where competition will be as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a tremendous change. I think we can claim as Fluence we were basically the first in this industry. We built this industry. Basically 15 years ago, the first projects that were connected to the grids, these were Fluence projects. Actually, mostly in the US and in Germany, actually. So that's where Fluence comes from, as a joint venture between Siemens and AES, two major powerhouses that came together and founded the company. So we were part of it. But at that time, actually, as you said, the development cycles and how long you could keep a certain product was totally different. So for instance, as I speak here today, we basically have 3 generations of our product that are live at the same moment in time. So we have already launched 2 new generations while still deploying the older one. So that speed of change is crucial, that you can maintain it. So that's a change that we see overall, and we also see a change in the competitive landscape where the things are becoming more focused on bigger players in there. So in the Western world, I think we can almost say it's basically us and Tesla who are active in there, and then we see a lot of Chinese companies that are basically coming into the place with all of the pros and the cons in there. But they have a big backbone regarding development and manufacturing and so on and so forth. What we do at Fluence, we use, for instance, the MOD framework. So it's modified agile hardware development. So using agile development for hardware, and with that we believe that we can adapt faster, can bring faster development cycles basically in there, also bring all of the parts of the company together. That is also crucial because when, for instance, we talk about our newest product, SmartStack, is something that we brought together. It's basically a smart skid at the base, and then it has 4 battery pods on top. So it's a very modularized thing. And how did we get to this modularized design? We saw that when you execute a project, it's very difficult to bring these big 20-foot containers that weigh 50 tons plus that most of our competitors basically have, to deploy them on site, because you need a huge crane basically to be able to do that. Transporting them, the logistics, very complex. But when you bring the whole power of the organization together, and you don't only have manufacturing and an R&D center, but you really also have project execution involved, the service guys involved, the whole customer experience team basically in there, you design that product differently. And for instance, you realize that a modularized design of the product is actually a better one. You can react to it, and the modularized design helps also with another thing, innovation, because you can innovate for the individual pieces faster than redesigning the overall thing.
Indeed. Actually, you brought up a SmartStack, so I think it'd be good to understand a lot of what you said in today's world relies on a lot of data being generated from various sensors and all the other aspects that you have. Given the large volumes of data that we see being generated, is there a lot of work that you do around modernizing those same data platforms, in aligning both the cloud strategy and agile, the MAD approach that you mentioned, and AI, to be able to both use it in an actionable way, both internally and for your customers?
Absolutely, yeah. So that's a very important trend. Also going a little bit back in history first, traditionally the core battery basically was like 80% of the value of the battery energy storage system. In today's world, we're actually looking at a world where this is 30%, maybe 40% of the total value. So still important, but not the majority anymore. Because actually many of the other things, meaning the software, the controls, and the sensors that you have in there, also core other components, have become much more important. And therefore it's important that you deliver the whole solution basically to the customers. So for instance, you need to know what is the state of charge of the batteries. So how much energy do I currently have available? How much can I dispatch? bringing performance guarantees around that one is crucial because the battery is basically there over a lifetime of 20, 25 years. Yeah. So from that perspective, it's crucial that we understand these things and that you have the data available to basically analyze that. So first of all, you have to build a big internal data lake where you can store that data in there. We have more than approximately 40 gigawatt hours basically of installed base out there, meaning projects all across the world, here in India, in many other places of the world, and bringing that all together in one data lake and then one center actually behind us where we sit here, we have our digital service center. So a lot of people who basically analyze the data that comes from there, data scientists who are looking into this one and who are then developing algorithms which we can use in our asset performance management tools, or Mosaic, the software that I talked about earlier on, the bidding software basically for energy, to make better decisions. So bringing all of that together is crucial. You need to have the right data architecture, and then you can build the right AI based on that.
Got it. I'll come to the DSC point you made in a second, but this also brings up in my mind, given the digitization that's happening of the entire value chain and this massive amount of data that we're talking about, the threat that we all fear and is sort of almost talked about very heavily in movies that we see around sort of cybersecurity, data, OT, IT boundaries, etc. How do you see digital risk in today's world, both for yourself, for the ecosystem, and for your customers as well?
Yeah, I think first it's very important that we understand the change in the transformation, and I alluded to that in the beginning of our discussions now. But we see with the interconnection queue in the US, for instance, 50% of the future projects, energy projects, BESS projects. So when you think about the energy infrastructure of a country, then you need to realize that a lot of that in the future is going to be coordinated, driven by BESS systems. And what does that actually? It's the software that is sitting on these BESS systems. So basically the software of the BESS system is running a big part of your critical infrastructure, of the energy infrastructure in there. So I talked about our competitive landscape and about the fact that many Chinese companies are coming in there. That's a decision that countries need to take. Is it actually that I want these Chinese companies running that energy infrastructure? Do I feel comfortable with that? Or do I prefer a company like Fluence that has a big part of the software development actually here in India, and then also in an overall integrated landscape in the US and in Germany? So these are crucial development centers for us, with India actually being the biggest one. So that's the overall landscape in there. And then cybersecurity, concretely speaking, is really at the heart of our thinking. So we do all of the development of the software, of the controls. This is in our hands. We do that in these centers, and it's very important that we have that in there because it's a vulnerable part of the infrastructure. We need to protect it.
Got it. Maybe we talk about the DSC that you mentioned, right? I think it was last year that you were mentioning to me that you brought in the remote monitoring and diagnostics capability in India, co-locating it here with the GIC, and we'll come to the GIC in a second, here in Bangalore. How are you seeing these existing centers evolve from a Fluence capability lens globally? I know you mentioned when you were talking earlier that this is the largest location for you in terms of having multifunctional Fluence employees being based out of. What kind of value creation are you seeing happening out of here with this co-location, not just GIC, but more broadly from even a monitoring and diagnostic lens?
Right. So the GIC, our Global Innovation Center here in Bangalore, we're sitting in the building, is actually something that I'm very proud of. We established it in the early days already of Fluence, but have kept on growing that over the last years. And it represents the whole value chain. So in difference to other locations at Fluence, you really find everything here. It starts with the commercial and marketing piece. It goes through the project execution piece up until the service piece, and obviously also our R&D product product development. This is at the heart of what we have here. So basically all functions of the company are present in this building. And that gives it a unique strength because these people can cross-collaborate, whilst maybe in a location in, I don't know, the Netherlands or so, it is easier for the sales folks to collaborate, but they will not immediately have the product development team around. Yeah? And from that perspective, it's a unique strength that we have created here in this location, and that is at the heart of our thinking. Then as one part of the Global Innovation Center, we have the Digital Service Center. And the Digital Service Center has the remote monitoring and diagnostics piece in there. So with the part that is actually behind us, we have a 24/7 team sitting here in 4 shifts, actually 5 shifts even, including the weekend. So these people basically permanently monitor our installed base, those almost 40 gigawatt hours that we have sitting in these different locations in the world. And they are able to resolve more than 90% of the issues that we saw that come up somewhere for different reasons remotely. The advantage is actually they can do this normally reaction time under 5 minutes. So something arises, immediate reaction basically, topic resolved, customer doesn't feel anything about it. So I think it's very important to have that capability. But then around it, building the digital capacity to analyze all of that data and taking those learnings for future developments of products, but also for doing the whole business better. Yeah, project execution, service interventions, predictive maintenance, going into these elements and developing AI capabilities around it. So that's really at the heart of our thinking, and it shows that for us it's very important to grow the GIC, the overall business here in Bangalore, in all of these functions, and specifically also in a very concrete thing that is of the heart of our operations, the digital service center that runs our installed base globally.
Got it. Wonderful. We were talking earlier, about this Vision 2030 study that BCG and Nasscom did around the ER&D advantage for India and the evolution in terms of focus and talent growth, etc. And you've been coming here for quite some time. You said 2006 onwards, you've been a regular seeing how India's evolved. I'd love to hear your perspective on what are some of the things you believe India is now able to do from an end-to-end transformation, for a global, conglomerate like Fluence or Siemens in your past life, in terms of contributing to research and development and innovation to really help move the organization forward.
Yeah. I mean, as you rightly said, basically first time I came to India was in 2006, and especially at Siemens, I've helped building up quite a number of different centers here in India. Latest was also a bigger engineering center here in Bangalore. But now with Fluence, it's a different game basically, and more integrated from the overall perspective. What does that mean? What I've seen in my past is basically centers being built up, and just as an extended workbench of basically all of the managers sitting somewhere in the Western world, and then you don't have any empowered leaders here in India locally. And I don't think that's working, and I think many companies have realized that. So I went through the painful experience of having had to close centers here in India because they were just not set up the right way. So I think you need to have empowered local leaders in the center that can help driving the success, and it needs to be a part of the global value chain, not like an extended workbench that is somewhere sitting out there, but really a part of the overall company. And that thinking is something that also has become possible because the talent pool that you have here in India, I mean, that's fantastic. So the number of engineering talent, for instance, the people who graduate every year from engineering schools, great. Then also those people who we have behind innovation. So we have really great innovators here in the center, very intelligent people that take on global responsibilities. And that's just something that really changed in India, in Bangalore, and for Fluence specifically. So we can really see this as a true innovation hub for Fluence.
Wonderful. One of the things that we also see happening quite a lot of, Roman, is partnerships and this idea of co-innovation, right? Bangalore and Gurgaon are the two large, what we call unicorn startup hubs. There's a lot of work happening in that space in general. Are there any collaborations that you're doing in terms of driving co-innovation with niche startups and other players in both the India ecosystem or even outside of India?
Yes, absolutely. As I said, India is really at the heart of our thinking here. So it's important for us to build up a whole supply chain and ecosystem in Bangalore and in India as a whole. So what does that mean concretely? So for instance, yesterday I was at Jain University here in Bangalore at their campus, and we talked about partnerships and things that we're doing together, and we have very concrete actions that we're bringing to play. Let me give you another example basically in this one. The smart stack and our newest product generation. First of all, the initial idea was here in Bangalore. So came from here. The prototype, the first prototype that we built, we actually built it in Hyderabad. I was there during my last visit when I was here in India, saw the prototype. Now, actually, we brought the prototype to the Jain University recently because we wanted to do a fire test. So it was maybe an interesting experience. I first saw the prototype, then I saw it being burned. But that's a normal thing that we need to do in our industry because safety is very important. So that the batteries basically burn down safely.
Correct.
You need to protect that. So for us, very important. Talked about the 4 pods. If the fire starts, it needs to be contained in one of them and shouldn't be spreading because otherwise you have a big fire out there. But you need to test it. So we have the testing, the certification infrastructure here in a close collaboration with Jain University. We have prototype developers, manufacturing that we bring here in Bangalore, in Hyderabad, in other places. So we are really integrated in the local landscape, and that's the strength.
Super. One of the big things that we always talk about, it's a cliche term, is about failing fast and trying more frequently. From your perspective, how do you foster a culture of innovation and experimentation without the fear of failure, both here and globally? What's the mantra that that drives all of you in that account?
Yeah, maybe also 2 concrete examples around this one. Using again the example of Smart Stack. So at the very initial phase of our thought process, there was actually somebody where an individual person here in the Global Innovation Center, Suhas is its name, had a great idea what the concept could be around Smart Stack. However, he didn't get the full traction. And during a skip level discussion, actually, I met him here in Bangalore, and he presented the initial concept to me, and I really found it fascinating. So I would not claim that I'm the intellectual father of this. This is clearly other people. But then I could take it and drive the whole thing within the company. And it really became a big success because our customers liked the concept and a great thing. So these skip levels, being open to other things that are maybe outside the standard roadmap, you need to do that, be open to things, listening to it. And the other piece, and I also started talking about that one as well, is looking at the whole value chain. Not only having a siloed software developer doing something in there, but really interfacing it with project execution, with services, with all of the other parts of the company, bringing all of that together in an agile framework and having that exchange in there. Very important to think everything in the end from the customer's point of view, and that can drive innovation.
Super. A very quick question before we jump to our last piece. You spoke about India as a key element of your strategy from a GIC lens, from the entire DSC aspect. What do you see India as a market do for you, given the context of this very large population, a lot of hunger in terms of driving growth, and obviously that fuels a lot of energy requirements as well?
Right. Yeah, India as a market, starting again a little bit with the history, I think we can claim at Fluence, we deployed, again, the first storage projects here in India. We are still the market leader basically regarding deployed projects. However, we are seeing a change in the market. So I talked about our company basically focusing more on the longer term life cycle value basically of the whole battery, because the customer is going to operate that asset ideally for 20, 25 plus years. And then you really need to bring all of this software, the sensors to it. You need to care a lot about safety and so on and so forth. So we have certain market segments with which that resonates very well. currently, I have to say, a pattern that I see in India is the customers here are very CapEx focused, so very much focused on the initial cost that you have early on in the process, which leads to the fact that they're very open to some Chinese players basically in the market, tier 2, tier 3 players in there. And in this market segment, we do not really want to play as Fluence, because we deeply care about the cybersecurity, the safety, and other elements in there. So from that perspective, I see the tremendous growth, but the market currently is not one of the absolute top focus markets for us. It is a top focus for us, though, for the Global Innovation Center and growing our presence here in Bangalore, overall in India, throughout the value chain. But for us, it's more India for the world, that we see. So that's the story of the Global Innovation Center.
Wonderful, wonderful. Let me end our podcast with a rapid fire fun fact. One word answers only, Roman. Favorite country to visit outside of India?
France. I lived there quite a while. I really like it a lot.
Super. Favorite food?
I think steak and fries.
Yeah. Steak and fries. American in that sense, huh?
Also French.
Yes, actually that's true. Favorite sport and sports person?
Favorite sports? I'm getting into rugby because my kids are playing that quite a lot. I broke my finger there. So,
okay, rugby it is. Roman, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I want to wish you and the Fluence teams the very best in your innovation journey. And I look forward to catching up with you again very soon.
Thank you very much, Snehil. It was a great pleasure.
Thank you.